Welcome back, Impactful One. In this video, I'm going to share how to set boundaries at work so that you make and create enough time for you to work on your business. This is for those of you who are working a 9-to-5 job, maybe part-time, maybe full-time, or perhaps some of the strategies are ones that you may be able to use as well if you are caring for a family or have other demands that tend to creep in to the time that you had planned to work on your business. So let's get right into today's video. If you don't know me already, my name's Mariana, and I'm the creator of the Impact Driven Coach School, where we help coaches to grow six-figure plus businesses on their own terms, working as many hours as they'd like, and how to get high-ticket clients into your business. So one of the important things when you are growing your business is that you create some routines, some habits, some set times, and it doesn't have to be set in stone every single week, but some time that you are investing into your business for it to grow, and really making sure you're doing those high income producing activities, the highest income producing activities possible during that time. If you're unsure what those are, we do have a free gift that shows you. It's a one-page referenceable page that you can use anytime. Actually, we recommend you do it every day to make sure you're investing into the highest income producing activities. And I'll definitely talk about that later. But my point is, we want to have devoted time to working on the business. And so with this video, the goal is to create those pockets of time, because oftentimes when we don't have time to work on our business, it's because we have let other things come in and seep into the time that we had, dedicated to working on the business. Or maybe we never intentionally just sat down and planned what the time would be. So I'm going to give you some skills in this video, how to actually, set the boundaries and create that space for yourself so that you can have the time to work on the business. So what is a boundary? A boundary is a line. It is a line that we create based on what we allow either other people to do or ourselves to do. And it is important that we look at it from these two perspectives. Sometimes the boundary has to be with ourselves. Sometimes the boundary has to be with other people. And so for the purpose of this training, I'm going to call that either a self-boundary violation, which is where you violate your own line, or an other boundary violation where somebody else kind of violates your line. Okay. And that line can be many different things, but for the purpose of this video and what the goal and objective is here, which is to have time to work on your business, we're going to pretend that this is mostly around time, okay, and energy and ability to really be productive during the hours that you have to work on your business, okay? So what are some examples of self-boundary violations and other boundary violations? So an other boundary violation is when maybe it's 4:30 and your boss asks you to do something, and you typically leave at 5, and your boss asks you to do something that will demand 2 to 3 hours more of time from you. However, you typically leave at 5. And let's say instead of asking, he or she actually just told you, you have to get this done by tomorrow morning at 9. And you typically get there at 9. Okay. So in that case, if it's not an ask and this other person is requesting something by a time limit that's either going to require you to stay after or to get something done really, really early before work the next day, that is an other boundary violation. And you can see by the example how much more rare that is than what we're going to talk about next. Let's say that that your boss asks you, could you get this done? It's 4:30, same scenario. You leave at 5, you get in at 9. Could you do this by 9 in the morning? Okay. You could say no. But perhaps you're afraid, you're not sure, you're like, maybe I'll get fired, or I really want the promotion so I can get more money next year or whatever. Or perhaps you don't know how to negotiate a boundary. Okay. So when that happens, it's an ask from your boss, but you actually, by saying yes, violate your own boundary. Okay. So in that second scenario, you had the opportunity to say no, but if you say yes, you are violating your own boundary. Another example of a self-boundary violation that I see often when my inside impact driven coach school, we work a lot on productivity scheduling, making sure that you have the time to do the tasks that are necessary to grow $100,000 business. And one of the things that we've discovered is, over time, and this is why I worked for an entire year on just honoring my word to myself, because what I noticed for myself and for many of our clients that come in struggling with having the time to work on the business, struggling with making sure that they're getting things done, is that they're doing a lot of micro self boundary violations. So instead of, they said they have a time block, I'm going to clean the house for 30 minutes and then I'm going to go work on, let's say, talking to leads for another 30 minutes after that. Okay. So if that's the case, and then you're working on the house and you're like, oh my gosh, but I'm not done with this and I need to finish this room. Or, I just discovered that I didn't get to do as much as I wanted to here in this block. So I'm just going to keep going. That is a self-boundary violation as well. And you can see that that involves nobody else, right? Sometimes our self-boundary violations involve other people and sometimes they don't. And when we are struggling with these boundary violations, it can be very, very difficult because we think we are the victims, right? We're like, but I don't have time to do this, or, just can't get ahead. And all of these limiting beliefs and these thoughts come in when the reality is you always have the choice of what you are going to do at every minute of every day, no matter what. And so even though it's hard, even though it's probably something that you aren't used to, maybe it's requiring some skills, some knowledge, some emotional, tools and ability to work through some emotions that you haven't before, right? Like feeling uncomfortable speaking with your boss and negotiating and these kinds of things, even though it's going to require more of you, it's part of the journey to getting to 100K. That's why we have such an intensive area of the school that goes into time management, as like managing your mind and your time together, because it is such a key. And without that foundation, it's going to be very difficult as you get up there. And I've seen it so many times where coaches will be at like $100,000 or $200,000 in a year in sales, and because they haven't built these skills up, they are, basically treading water, trying to keep up and keep their own boundaries when it comes to many different areas. Okay, now let's look at what are the areas that tend to seep in the most. I hinted a lot at time and time management because it is one of the most obvious ones and one of the ones that is the most insidious, because it happens like in micro cuts of like 5 minutes here and 10 minutes there, and like, oh my God, my blog post took me 2 hours instead of 1. Like, and a lot of times it can be completely unconscious unless you are very intentional and aware of where your time is going. So time is a big one. And when it comes to working, right, if you are in a salary job versus if you are in an, hourly job, that can make a big difference. I know when I first started my business, I was working a salary job, and in the beginning, I was working like 80 hours, 60 to 80 hours, because I had to finish all of my responsibilities at work. And that time ballooned out to all of the other time. And so making sure that I was super disciplined with what I was getting done for work while I was at work and no longer bringing stuff home was a very big part of my productivity journey that allowed me to then have the time to work on my business before work or after work. Okay. And then if you are hourly, it's much simpler because you simply, if you're not clocked in, you're not working on your business. But you do want to consider how, if you can pick up overtime, if you're allowing yourself to do that, are you doing it in a way that's in integrity with your goals, and really thinking through those kinds of situations if you are in that situation. Now, another type of boundary is mental boundaries. So what this means is that you're thinking about things at work when you are not at work. Okay. And perhaps you are thinking about things in your business when you're at work, and therefore may not be as productive at work. And so creating these mental boundaries is very important so that you can get all of the work done for the area that you're working on, whether it be your job or your business. Having the mental boundary is key. And if you are, if you have a family and you really want to be intentional, mental boundaries is fantastic for that as well. Because if you are trying to spend quality time with your family, but all you're doing is thinking about work, you're not really present. And so those hours don't really clock the same. And especially, I've run my business having little kids at home. Kids can tell the difference. Kids can tell the difference that you're not actually present with them. And then they start wanting more and more of your attention. And that can then be the thing that seeps in to your ability to get work done on your business. And so really that mental boundary is so important. And one of the things that has helped me to really make sure I'm intentional with this is meditation. And you can start with as little as 5 minutes once a day, or 10 minutes once a day. And there's a free app called Insight Timer, not sponsored at all. It's just totally free and it's very, very handy. Insight Timer, and just doing a meditation at one point or another throughout the day can really help you to see how your thoughts are just happening. They're happening, right? And starting to redirect your thoughts, and the practice of redirecting what's happening naturally to I'm going to be intentionally thinking about my breath, or I'm going to intentionally be thinking about whatever this meditation person is telling me to do at this moment. And so that practice, even if it's just 10 minutes or 5 minutes a day, allows you to build the muscle of doing that, which then allows you to be more present in either of any of the scenarios that you find yourself in your life, which require that, right? Because then it's not going to seep into the time that you were hoping to work on your business. All right, next is self-care. Okay, so if you are juggling a job, whether it's part-time or full-time, maybe a family, perhaps, and a business, right? You're definitely juggling a job and a business if you're watching this, right? Because that's the title of this video. So if that's the case, then it's important that we have enough time and enough intentionality with meeting our own needs for self-care. And when I'm talking about self-care, I'm not talking about getting manicures, getting pedicures. That's not self-care. Self-care means that you identify what your need is, what do you need, and you give it to yourself, okay? So an example of this, and you do this despite anything or anyone else. So an example of this for me at my work, and I've worked at several places where the common culture is to work through lunch. Oh, you can just write things down during lunch. You can, chart, document, whatever, that's the time to catch up on that. And I refuse to do that. Okay. Because one, I am legally entitled to a break. And number two, I know myself, I am exponentially more productive when I have space from my work for 30 minutes at least for my lunch. Okay. So that being the case, during my lunch, I then meet my own needs. And those needs vary from day to day. Sometimes I'm literally just eating my lunch in silence and I just needed to not have any stimulation for some time. Sometimes I'm meeting up with a friend to have some connection during lunch. Other times I might be trying to move some projects ahead, right? Like, maybe I'll call a doctor or, call my lawyer or my realtor or whatever the thing is to move certain projects ahead that I may be working on. So what you do during that self-care time is completely dependent on what your needs are and being self-aware enough and practicing self-awareness so that you know what you need and you meet it for yourself. And the same goes for, making sure you're scheduling in time for yourself throughout the day and the week. Like your only break in your day should not be your lunch break. Like, I have coached so many clients on their schedules, and in a program like in our higher level masterminds, they'll submit their schedule to me, and I'm always shocked when I see a back to back to back schedule like all day, and they consider that to be productive. They're like, this is going to be me being super productive, and I'm just going to fill the entire day. And I'm like, there's no time for you at all in the schedule. Like, at all. I mean, except showering, right? Like, I don't see any time for you to meet your own needs. And so being very intentional with that is going to be really important to increase your actual productivity, what you're producing during the hours that you are working on your business, that you are working at your job, and that you are with your family. For those hours to count at, the highest, like we talked about with being present, right? And being, mentally there, for those hours to really count, your cup has to be full. And you do that by meeting your own needs throughout the day and throughout the weeks. And that can be, again, very different for different people and different situations. All right. Physical boundaries is next. So physical boundary is, I wanted to give this example, especially for, and we've had clients who work at home in their 9-to-5 job, they work from home, and then they also work on their business from home. And if you've ever worked from home, it can be very difficult to know where the lines are between when you're working, when you're cleaning your house, when you're doing dinner, when you are working on one business versus, working on, at your job. All of it can kind of become very gray area. And so with physical boundaries, we create a physical space where we do an activity. So perhaps you always work on your business tasks in one area or one chair of your house 90% of the time. And then when you're working for the job, you're working in a different area. And that physical cue can help your brain to remember. And again, it just creates that cue so that your mental is all in that same area. You're creating the boundary. It's easier to stay on track. You know what you're supposed to be doing, what you're focusing on, and you can stay laser focused and productive throughout that day. So that's the physical boundary example. If you go to a job, it's obviously a lot easier because the physical boundary is there, but making sure that you leave work at work and things like that can be very, very helpful. If you are wondering, okay, now that I have created the space for growing my business, what are the things that I'm going to work on to make sure that I'm working on the highest income producing things? Go to impactdrivenentrepreneur.com/ceiling to get our, referable one-page document that shows you what to really work on every single day to grow a $100,000 plus coaching business. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, and hit the bell so that you get notifications when we release the next video, which is going to be about how to communicate your boundaries in different situations, whether that be in your personal life or with someone in a more professional setting. So make sure you are tuned in to our channel for next week's episode, all about communicating your boundaries and really applying this work to your life and to your business. I'll see you next week.